All right, let's break down the world of cybersecurity. Over the next few minutes, we're going to cover the absolute essentials, from the basic building blocks like risk, all the way up to the big regulations that govern our digital world. So let's dive right in. It really all boils down to this one big question, doesn't it? Every single one of us, every company, every government, we're all trying to figure this out. And the very first step is to get comfortable with the language everyone in security speaks. So where do we even start? With the most important word in the entire field, risk. Now, risk isn't just some vague, scary feeling. It's something we can actually calculate. It's all about the chance that something bad will happen to our stuff, our assets, and what that would do to its confidentiality, keeping our secret secret, its integrity, making sure our data is accurate and trustworthy, or its availability, making sure we can actually get to it when we need it. The simple formula for this is just, what's the likelihood it'll happen, times how bad would it be if it did? That equals your risk. Okay, so if that's the risk, what's causing it? Well, that brings us to threats. And here's the thing, when you hear threat, you probably picture a hacker in a dark room, right? And sure, that's an intentional threat. But a threat can also be totally unintentional, like an employee who just accidentally deletes a critical file. The outcome can be just as damaging. Now, a threat on its own isn't always enough. It needs a way in, and that's where a vulnerability comes into play. A vulnerability is simply a weakness, a crack in the armor that a threat can exploit. And just like threats, they come in different flavors. It might be a technical bug, like some misconfigured software, or it could be a human issue, like someone losing their office keycard. Okay, so we've got the basic vocabulary down: risks, threats, vulnerabilities. But what do you do with that knowledge? Well, before you can protect anything, you've got to know what you're trying to protect in the first place. And that leads us to asset management. And it really comes down to this simple but incredibly powerful idea. It sounds so obvious, right? But for a big company, just getting a handle on everything they have, from sensitive customer data to every single laptop, is a huge and absolutely crucial first step. So once you've got that inventory, the next step is to label everything. Think of it like a sorting system. Organizations use classifications like these to figure out just how sensitive each piece of information is. Is it top secret, need to know stuff? That's going to be restricted. Is it something that wouldn't cause any harm if it got out? We can label that public. This whole system just helps focus the security efforts on what matters most. All right, we know what we have and we know how important it is. So now what? How do we actually protect it? Well, good security isn't just random. It follows a plan, a strategy, built on proven frameworks and principles. And one of the best playbooks out there is the NIST Cybersecurity Framework. The key thing to see here is that this isn't a checklist you do once and forget about. It's a continuous cycle. You start with governance and identifying risks, then you move to protecting your systems. But it doesn't stop there. You have to be able to detect problems, respond to them, and then recover. It's a constant loop, which makes it a really flexible game plan for pretty much any organization. And baked into any good framework, you'll find core ideas like these too. The principle of least privilege is simple. You only give people access to the absolute minimum they need to do their job. No more, no less. Then you have separation of duties, which says that for really critical tasks, you should make sure no single person can do it all by themselves. Think of it like this. Least privilege limits what you can access, while separation of duties limits what you can do on your own. So we've talked strategy and principles, all the high-level stuff. Now let's get our hands dirty and look at the actual toolkit, the technologies that bring all these ideas to life. First up, a big one: encryption. This is just the art of scrambling data so that nobody can read it unless they're supposed to. The two main flavors are symmetric and asymmetric. Symmetric is like having one key that both locks and unlocks a door. It's super fast. Asymmetric is more like a mailbox. Anyone with your public key can drop a message in, but only you, with your private key, can open the box and read it. This is way more secure for sending sensitive info. Now this next one, hashing, sounds a lot like encryption, but it is fundamentally different. It takes your data and turns it into a unique code, a hash. But here's the critical difference. It's a one-way street. You can't ever reverse the hash to get the original data back. And this is incredibly useful, especially when it comes to passwords. Let me show you what I mean. So let's take a password we've all probably seen 1,000 times. Password 123. If a company stored this password just like this in their database, it would be an absolute catastrophe waiting to happen. So instead, they hash it. That simple password gets transformed into this long, messy string of characters. Now, if a hacker gets into the database, all they see is the hash, not your password. So we're safe, right? Well, not exactly. Attackers have these massive pre-made lists called rainbow tables with the hashes for millions of common passwords, just like this one. So how do we beat those rainbow tables? With a really clever little trick called salting. All it means is that before we hash the password, we add a little bit of unique random data to it. And by adding that salt, we get a completely different hash. Now, even if two people use the exact same password, password123, their salted hashes will be totally unique in the database. This makes those rainbow table attacks pretty much useless. It's such a simple concept, but it makes a massive difference for security. But here's the thing. In today's world, even a perfectly hashed and salted password, it's just not enough on its own. And that's where multi-factor authentication, you've probably heard it called MFA, comes into play. It's the simple idea that to prove you are who you say you are, you need more than one piece of evidence. The first factor is usually what we're all used to, something you know. That's your password, your PIN number, or the answer to one of those secret questions. But then for MFA, you add a second factor, something you have. This is a physical object, like your phone that gets a one-time code, or maybe one of those little USB security keys you have to plug into your computer. And the third, and often strongest, factor is something you are. We're talking biometrics here. Your fingerprint, a scan of your face, your voice, things that are uniquely you. When you combine any two of these factors, it becomes so much harder for a bad guy to get into your accounts. Okay, so we've got the concepts, the strategy, the tools, but there's one more layer on top of all of this, the actual rules, the laws. We're talking about compliance and regulations. And you've probably heard of some of these big ones. In Europe, you have GDPR, which is all about giving people control over their personal data. If you've ever used a credit card, PCI DSS is the set of rules that keeps that transaction secure. And in healthcare in the US, there's HIPAA, which is designed to protect our private medical information. These aren't just good ideas, they're the law, with serious consequences for companies that don't follow them. And that really brings us full circle. We've gone from the basic definition of risk all the way to the global laws that protect our data. But this field never stands still. So the question to think about is this. As our digital lives become even more intertwined with our physical world, what's going to be the next big thing? The next security measure that's so essential it becomes totally non-negotiable. Thanks for tuning in.